Our new sponsor, Better, is a fast-growing daily fantasy sports app. When you sign up using promo code PLAYBOOK in all caps, you receive a free $10 and a 100% deposit match up to $25. Welcome to the NBA Hangout presented by Playbook Sports. I'm your host, Brandon. With me, as always, is Dave. Dave, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. We have lots and lots and lots to talk about since the last time we spoke, which was only like 4 days ago. But so much has happened. We have a new NBA champion. We have a story with that Game 7. I think it was a fantastic Game 7, at least for 2.5 quarters. And then things kind of went one way, but it is what it is. We had a KD trade, we have a blockbuster trade, and we have a bunch of other little trades to set us up for this nice draft that's happening tomorrow or today as you're listening to this. So how was your last couple of days in the NBA world?
Conflicted?
Yeah.
Is that a fair answer? Conflicted?
I will say, yeah. With a lot, with how the finals went down, like how Game 7 went down, confliction is definitely a feeling I had with the Houston trade with KD. Definitely conflicted with how that went down. What he went for, what other teams didn't want to offer. Interesting, conflicting. What else was there? Because I was conflicting. All these trades that are happening right now.
Yeah, all these trades.
Trying to still make sense of it. We
Sliders.
Had 3 of them today. Like some of the draft stuff too. Yeah, it's really conflicting stuff. Like, what is Ace doing? we'll try to figure it out. But yeah, I think we'll start with the champions of the 2025 NBA season, which are the Oklahoma City Thunder, becoming first-time champions for the franchise. First thoughts on that?
Felt expected. It's funny. Like, I was a bigger fan of Oklahoma like a couple years ago, more when they were still like underdogs. But like the way they ended last season, the way the team's built, the way it's built for the future, the way they performed in the regular season, the way their defense was historic, the way they walked through the playoffs, the way that Shea won MVP over Jokic despite Jokic's season. And it's not even like that. Like, it's not like that's not even conflicting. Like, Shea's a fully deserving MVP. It's just, it felt inevitable. And now that it's here, it was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. I feel that from a sense. I think to a certain extent we kind of got numb to the feeling of OKC over the season somehow, even though they weren't talked about as much as like other teams were. Just to the fact that we all just felt like they're a good team. And I'm trying to I'm sitting here, right? I'm looking at the roster, and if you just look at the roster on paper, you would not. I still think to this day you would not claim this to be like a super team, a dynasty, or any like crazy team by any margin. Like Lou Dort starting does not really, go to that. I love Lou Dort, Canadian guy, plays hard and soul of this team. But like Caruso, Lou Dort, Jalen Williams even being like your number 2 guy. Like we didn't even know if he was going to be a number 2 guy going into this year. We saw flashes of it last year, but we weren't sure if he was going to be able to handle that load for this year. He proved that he was able to for stretches and so, but he had his dips as any young player trying to fill that role did. But I look at this roster and I'm it's not super amazing. And I wonder if because of that, how they're going to handle this offseason coming up. Because we did see some flaws with the roster. But before we get to the flaws, I still want to talk about some of the good things. So with Shea in particular, I think looking at this season for him, as it's been noted by plenty of people, it's a historic season for him as an individual. 4th player in NBA history to win MVP, Finals MVP, scoring title, all in the same season, joining Kareem, Michael, who did it 4 times, of course, because that's just Michael can't just do one thing once.
And I watched
Shaq.
Space Jam last night while I was doing it was awesome.
So good.
Everybody loves Mike.
Got to. Yes, 4th player to do that. And like probably is now best player in Canadian basketball history. I think it might be safe to say. Like I think he dethroned Steve Nash there. Steve Nash had a long run at it. This Thunder team wins 84 games on the season, 3rd most of any team ever in NBA history. So just all these accolades to that you see. Shea also 64 games with at least 30 points. Only other players to do that are like Will, to Rick Barry, Elgin Baylor, Bob McAdoo, James Harden, Jordan again, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar again. So just greats. He's in there with these. This is one of the best seasons that we've ever seen from an individual. And I think what's kind of going underreported with this is that how he's carried this team throughout the entire year. Yes, he won the MVP. Yes, he's the Finals MVP. Yes, he was the Western Conference MVP. But when you just look at this roster and take it for face value, no one would ever pick this roster to be a championship team and being talked about as a dynasty. I think a lot to do with that is Shea and how he's able to manage games on a nightly basis.
Yeah, I mean, like you open up the season this season, and everybody would have taken it would have been Boston versus Oklahoma.
Yes,
and a lot of that came from just the way that Oklahoma played last season and finished it off. Yeah. Not so much like, oh, this team is stacked. Everybody took a step forward this year for that team. So last year when they felt too young, this year they did not. Shea felt perfectly even keel all year long. Worked really well for his team and his co-stars. And yeah, they ended up being inevitable. But like, you know, up until earlier today, if you'd put the on paper lineups, Boston or Oklahoma, I'd probably still take Boston. Right?
Yeah,
we're ignoring any injuries, but like,
yeah, fully healthy, of course.
Boston, yeah. So I don't know. It's they're in a really good place. I would think that I would agree with you that there's still some like work to do on the roster, but because they have so many incoming like picks, like Nolan Traore didn't even play all year. No, Nikola Topic.
Topic. Yeah.
I always get these two confused. Traore needs to get drafted still.
Just a day away.
It's a day away, yeah. At this time tomorrow, he's probably drafted.
He'll be drafted. Hopefully.
However, like, I think they're going to want to consolidate, but they have to be careful about spending too much. And you want to spend on your best players. So you want to spend on Shea. You want to spend on Jalen Williams. You want to spend on Chet. So my thinking is, like, if you have a really good role player on a really good team-friendly contract, you can probably expect a call from the Oklahoma City Thunder this summer.
Yeah, you gotta revamp like the role players as you will as they start to get too expensive and just keep that churning out. Luckily, they have a bunch of firsts to play with. They're looking to move up in this draft as it is already. So they'll have the right mindset, I think, heading into this offseason to make the right moves. Last offseason, they came up short. They made two pretty big moves with getting Hartenstein and getting Caruso. Completely was a huge difference maker in these playoffs compared to last playoffs. His experience, just the way he was able to defend certain players, the energy he would bring on the defensive end, just injecting fuel into that defense, that historic defense, as you mentioned. And Cason Wallace coming into his own as well. So yeah, when these guys start to age out, like Caruso's their oldest guy at like 30. But as these guys start to get older or starting to get more paydays, like Dora's probably going to be looking for something soon and all that type of stuff. They're gonna have to, revamp those role players. I had something else to say about with Shea, but it's not coming to me right now. So that's okay. We'll move over to the Pacers. Who had a heartbreaking, I would say, Game 7. That Game 7 to start it off was looking electric. Both teams were firing. The defense was like on point for both teams, and tough shots were being made for both teams, and it was back and forth. I think the largest lead was like 5 points for the longest time in that game, until the inevitable happened with Tyrese, which sucked to see. Happened early on, but Pacers were able to play out that first half strong, but it really did stink to see Tyrese on the floor like that, and we all knew what was coming and what happened based on the injury that he had prior. So, but to it all, they still fought to the end. Benedict Mathurin for sure. There's moments in there like the game was slipping away. It was getting to like 12 points games, and Benedict was just playing his heart out, trying to give them anything to just have one last miracle comeback, which I like to see from the Pacers, because that fan base, that team, the way they fought the entire year, deserved at least to go out with on kind of their terms, trying playing their hearts out, right? So at least that was good to see from that perspective. A run that you don't see too often. Probably one of the biggest underdog runs that we've seen come to mind recent history. And if Tyrese is healthy, you never know. They might have even pulled this off. So you never know.
It kind of feels like they might have. Yeah, because it was obviously like, thoughts with Tyrese, get better, get strong. If you got to take the whole year off, take the whole year off. Go hang out with Jason Tatum. Two of you can call up Dame.
Man.
All three of you can just like
maybe change your
work through it
jerseys
together. Yeah,
change jersey numbers. All you guys wearing the same jerseys. Maybe just think about that.
That's a good point. Yeah, whole bunch of 10s on the court in 2 years. Yeah, it's super disappointing. And then he goes down, and my immediate thought is, well, we've seen this all year. Like once the team loses the star, the team is done, right? Like they've just lost this, right? It's just how it's gone. And so I was like, oh, this team's gonna lose. This sucks, because like I'm rooting for them. They're the great underdog story. Oklahoma's gonna be here next year. I can't say the same about the Pacers. This was the funner story. And then they start like just holding on. Like
TJ McConnell.
Yeah, the Thunder kept trying to like go on runs. TJ McConnell's just like dribbling everywhere and somehow making shots and going on like 10-0 scoring runs by himself. And they were leading at halftime by 1 point. And then we get into the third, like you mentioned, like it's 2.5 quarters of fun. We get into the third, and there's a stretch. If I'm not mistaken, it's 3 threes in like just over a minute, and I'm pretty sure they came from Shea, Jalen Williams, and Chet.
Yeah,
and like it was all in a row, just bang, 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 and then that was the game.
The defense turned up. They're like, "Oh, Tyrese is in here. We can trap people." Started trapping. TJ McConnell started trapping them hard, forcing turnovers, and then playing right into that identity that they love to play into. So, and it was just pretty much double-digit lead from there, and they just held on to win it out. But yeah, Pacers gave it a real good effort for a large chunk of that game. Two ramifications though of this is what I want to touch on. Is the first is you brought up, we expect to see OKC back here. Do we think they can repeat though? Because we haven't seen a repeat this decade. We've had like we're on a run of like 7 different winners since 2019, I believe. There's been a new winner every year. So do we see OKC the first team to kind of break that trend, or are we seeing a new champion again next year? And then and I have a question for that relates to the Pacers after that. But let's focus on this one first. Do we think OKC can repeat?
I think a lot of people just thought that like Boston was the most likely to repeat, probably myself included. But if the year taught us anything, that it's health and depth, right? I don't think any team is necessarily deeper than Oklahoma, and I think that even like next season they're going to be probably amongst the deepest teams. But also being the youngest team, one of the youngest teams like out there, gives you probably a pretty confident shot that they're going to stay healthy. Now, that said, like Tatum and Halliburton are like young guys, and they both had Achilles injuries this year. But you got to think of like the overall and what's likely. I don't think Shea's even really been out with much injuries throughout his career, so he seems like a pretty durable kid. So I don't know. I kind of feel based on that, like health and depth, I kind of feel like they're the best positioned to repeat. Even though I think I was more confident in Boston repeating that I'm feeling right now. But
Boston definitely felt like they had more of an edge on everybody. They just had like that. They had like more of a perfect offense. That defense was pretty crazy. I think this OKC's, their defense is historic, as we mentioned, but it still relies on turning over the ball, which isn't always as as reliable as just a normal sound defense. Like relying on some of that stuff takes a lot of energy. I think that's why a lot of these series went longer, because certain games you don't have it on that end, because of how intense you have to play all the time to make that type of basketball work. So I guess I think I'm with you there. Where it felt more inevitable with Boston to repeat than it does OKC. I think partly to do with some of what these other teams are doing in the West as well. The West feels like it's getting better and better. I think that has to do it too. But yeah, they're a young team. They seem to be very conscious that they still need to get better. I think they learned a lot during this run. I think that's only going to help them move forward. So if there's a team to repeat, I can't see this being one of those teams, especially if a guy like Chet had a pretty rough series and game. Like this series was pretty rough for him. There's moments where he shined, of course.
He was awesome.
Yeah, except for game 7. Yeah, but there's times where like he would look awesome. There's times where he looked like he's punching above his weight. He only shot 15% from 3 for the series. Like he can't. Yeah. That needs to be much better, right? So there's still a lot of room for growth for a lot of these players. Jalen Williams had that 40-point game, followed it up by having a plus minus of -40 the next game. So there's still there's a big learning curve that these guys are still going through, which honestly, I think this playoff run in general for them was a really tough one and a really necessary one. They go through Denver, which takes them to 7, a former champion who basically threw everything they had at them. And they're playing another former MVP, a guy that was battling for your MVP this year. You get by that to face Minnesota, the team that everyone was kind of heralding at that moment. You have a lot of people having Anders the next guy. Julius Randle looks locked into this new role. Looks like he's taken another step. Gobert looked like he was able to dominate all the matchups. Kind of had to do with the competition they're playing, as we found out. But they're looking like another tough team, and they handled them correctly. And then they come to this finals where they're heavily favored. They're expected to win in 4 or 5, and they don't. They lose game. They lose game 1. They lose game 1 off the bat, get a game winner hit on them by Tyrese. And this series goes all the way to 7. And the one thing that I do admire about this team is they got thrown a lot of gut punches throughout this entire run that for their age, for them being a young team, would have taken them out. A lot of young teams would have been taken out by the pressure that they had to deal with during these playoffs. That Denver series, how this Pacer series went, they would have just crumbled and fallen. But I think with a leader like Shea and how they all just fall in line, Mark Dagnall doesn't really get too high or too low. And that just comes, I think, from the identity of Shea. That seems to be the identity of OKC at this point. We're going to play hard defense, and we're not going to get too up. We're not going to get too down. And having that sort of mentality, for such a young team, I think bodes well for their future as well. Whether they make, they might miss on whatever moves that they make, but I think the mentality and the culture that they've kind of cultivated over there in OKC can carry them far, and maybe have them at least, if not repeat, bring them further than maybe Boston did this year.
Yeah, just fingers crossed they don't repeat the way Boston did.
Yeah,
that would involve Shea getting an Achilles injury, and we don't want to see anybody.
We don't want to see that.
Yeah. I mean, the most set up team in professional sports that I can remember, to be positioned for long-term success. Yeah. With the way that they have draft picks on draft picks, young players on young players. And now that they're winning championships, like, free agents are going to want to go there. I mean, free agency is kind of muted because every team is against the cap. And it's like, you'll get one team and it's like Brooklyn. And it's like, are you going to go there as a free agent when nothing else is there?
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, that's how the way the game is played. And I think moving over to the East with the Pacers with the Tyrese injury. So we talked about Tyrese. We mentioned Tatum. We've mentioned Dame. We have all these injuries. Joel Embiid. East feels as open as it's ever been. I know we kind of start every season this way, but this season, going into this next season, who's going to be the best team in the East? Cleveland, I guess, by default. Detroit has a solid chance next year. I know we're joking, but based on like what,
I'm only half joking. I'm only laughing because it's Detroit, and you and I keep getting burned by them.
I know, but not anymore. That changes. That's all changed. That was a season ago. We're good now. We're on the right side of history. Yeah, like I think, yeah, at this point, why not Detroit? You know, the way that the teams have been developing at this point. Cleveland, of course, they had the best record in the East last year, so they're of course going to be ready for the season next year, barring some
Orlando.
crazy Orlando, you know, making that move for Bane. So, but these are all teams that I feel like are in a similar bubble that there's no real hierarchy to it as yet. And I feel like if any of those teams were in the East, I don't know if we're looking at them as like a top team in the East, or sorry, in the West, if they were moved over there. So you know, the East, I think this Halliburton injury just amplified how weak the East could be looking next season.
Yes. Yeah. Not even like the top draft picks going to the East this year. Right.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
top
They're
draft
going.
picks going to the West.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
got
I don't
going
know. Atlanta.
Dallas and Spurs. Sure. Like,
Is Giannis going to stay in Milwaukee? Because he's like, I could just do this by myself. Like,
it sounds like he might. It sounds like he's completely okay with just like I think the thing of like winning your ring early just really helps with your decision making when it comes to that. He's comfortable in Milwaukee, start a family there. I don't think he really wants to leave unless he sees a real like golden opportunity to do something special somewhere else. I don't think there's anything really out there right now for that. Maybe if OKC lost and they were like, oh man, we just need to get the championship, we'll do something crazy for Giannis, and then it might have gone to the point where management might have saw an OKC package and been like, we can't even turn this up. Like, we have to take this.
Yeah.
We like you and all, but we kind of just have to do this to save our franchise. So yeah, I think Giannis, if he's playing with the Bucks, they're going to be a playoff team at the minimum. You know, Dame's not going to be there, so yeah, he's looking pretty dire. Which, you know, we can transition into the KD trades. Is like, I don't know if I know we talked about it before, like Miami not going in for KD, and we didn't expect Miami to go in for KD. But now seeing how that kind of transpired and how little KD did go for, and hearing that they could have gotten him if they just, you know, added a piece or two. Do you feel as if Miami made the right choice in sitting this one out? Or do you think they should have made the move to go in on them? Because, you know, a KD, I've still got Dame from 2023 on my mind. If KD, Bam, and Hero trio, would that have made any difference for you in this weekend East?
Yeah, it would have made a difference, but it just feels like, I don't know, like
putting a band-aid
what
on
is like, this is kind of like where I'm at with the Lakers, but the Lakers have like better
LeBron.
talent. They've got LeBron and Luka now. It just feels like these are two franchises that keep kicking the can down the road. Like, oh, it's going to come together later if we can add this one player or, you know, this other little piece. And it's like, I don't know if these teams are like, I don't know if Miami and I don't know if the Lakers are even like really truly set up for success right now. You know, like, do they have enough assets to maximize their current best players, right? Like Bam and Hero are great players to have on your franchise. I'm a big fan of Ware. There's some other good stuff on Miami, but I don't know if there's enough stuff. You know,
no, definitely. I mean, it would if this year's anything of a indicative of it is like they made the playoffs, sure. They get swept by Cleveland. Cleveland then goes out the next round. So like, I don't know if it bodes well at all to say that this core is worth truly like investing a KD in. So like before the trade happened, like I think like we were talking about we talked about it on here. I was like, yeah, like they can go for it if he's dirt cheap. Sure, why not? You do it. But when you get into the territory of giving up Jovic, a first and then a future first, I think that's where you get to the point of it. You're like,
I don't even think that would have beaten Houston's offer.
From the sounds of like what Shams and what all these other guys were reporting, it was like they just wanted Hami, Jovic, Wiggins, whatever, I think it was Duncan Robinson or Terry, whatever the filler was, as well, a first round pick and then a future first as well. which would probably have been like a swap or something like that. And they would have been more than okay to send him to Miami. But Miami didn't want to concede all of that, or you add Ware. It was either that or you add Ware. And they didn't want to concede Ware. They didn't want to concede Jovic in the picks. And it's like, okay, so then yeah, if it's at that point, I'm like, I don't know if it's truly necessary to go for KD in that situation. Like, yeah, you might get to the second round.
Well,
at best.
Let's examine the offer that Katie went for, right? So you've got Jalen Green, good young player with all-star potential if he puts it all together, right? But right now, a walking bucket. He can sell jerseys. He's going to get on the highlight reel. He's going to have great numbers, right? Is he a winner? We don't quite know yet. You get Dylan Brooks back. Dylan Brooks is a solid vet. Plays defense, hard nose, can work with young guys, help the team advance, right? You get the 10th overall pick, the 10th.
Their own pick back.
Still, it's a good pick. It's a really good pick to have, the 10th overall pick. In a fairly like well-regarded
good draft. Oh, good draft. Yeah.
And then 5 seconds. And if you use those seconds,
that's the kicker. That's the kicker. I think that's what really put that trade more so over. Because I think the Jalen Green, they didn't want Jalen Green. The Suns didn't really want Jalen Green because they have Booker. They've been pretty adamant in being like, we don't want Jalen Green. We want to move him somewhere else. Now they're changing that messaging, but before the deal was made,
they got to trade Booker.
It's
just where they're at.
Exactly, they're gonna have to move Booker, but before that trade goes down, they don't really love Jalen, and he's already paid 33 million a year. I mean, it's a shorter contract, so you can deal with it. And same thing with Dylan Brooks. I think Dylan Brooks was kind of thrown in there because Houston had to get rid of him. He made too much money. They have to pay all these guys, and they're going to move him regardless. So I think for Houston, it wasn't much to do this trade. They have all their young guys already, but I think the 5 seconds is what really puts that trade over, because Phoenix was, I think they don't have anything. They don't have anything to trade, so they get 5 of anything. Yeah. To get 5 of anything is really good for them, I think. I think that was really what pushed that trade over the edge. Like when you look at it from like comparing it to the Miami package, which I think was again Wiggins, let's say Duncan, because that would save you the most money. So Wiggins, Duncan, Hami, Jovic. So you get two more of the prospects that you would want, the 20th pick, and then future first.
Like I know you like Jovic, and I know you like Hami, and even Khalil.
I don't really like Hami.
I would take Jalen Green over all those guys. Like that's just me.
I wouldn't. I really wouldn't.
Who are you taking over Jalen Green at this point?
Jalen Green and his contract. I'm.
His contract isn't terrible. It's like $30 million in today's modern NBA.
Like, I'm not taking. I put him in the tier with like Anthony Simons. I put him in like that sort of tier where it's like he's fine. He's a fine player. He's young.
Yeah.
He has moments where he can score. Like he has, I shouldn't say moments. He has months where he can score really well. Defense has always been kind of lacking. His selection has always been like I've experienced Tyler Hero, and I don't see much difference from like a Tyler Hero to a Jalen Green. I might even put Tyler Hero as a better playmaker over Jalen Green at that respect, and currently makes less. Due for an extension though. So, and both of those guys, I wouldn't really want Tyler Hero for that range. Like I would prefer to trade Tyler before he gets his extension anyways. The same way that I would probably rather not have Jalen Green in that same regard. So I would rather the young pieces. And if it was me, if I was the Suns, I would prefer the young pieces in the first over Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks, because you're not going to do much with those two guys there. They're going to be there. They're going to fill out your roster. Jalen Green for sure is going to help you sell some jerseys. He brings a notoriety that the other players would not give you. But look at it too. Wiggins not a bad player either. Like Wiggins probably better than Dylan. Wiggins probably better than Dylan Brooks. Like they're getting players that they can immediately impact a lineup versus just some salary dumps and 5 seconds. I think the 5 seconds is what puts that one over though.
5 seconds, but also the 10th overall pick. That's a really good pick.
It is a good pick. That's a good
pick.
But you would get 2 picks. You get 2 first.
Are they going to be the 10th? Are they going to be top 4 in next year's
Who
draft?
knows?
Because you
That's
just
the
want top
beauty.
4 in next year's draft.
That's the beauty of futures. You don't know. you
but
don't
you
know
have the certainty
of a 10th.
like a 10th, a lottery pick, a
I do like the 10th.
pick.
The picks perspective from the Suns perspective, I think the picks is the best part of this deal. For the Suns, the players and the prospects, they don't move me much at all. If I'm like, I don't think the Suns for KD, I don't think the Suns, if those are your the fact that we're debating on these being your two packages for KD, like a Hall of Fame player, like
KD's 37,
but it's crazy to me.
He's
Is that
37 and he hasn't been on a winning team in how long?
Like 2 years. He was just in the like the playoffs, like a couple years ago with Brooklyn.
Playoffs.
He was in there last year against Anthony Edwards.
The Raptors make the playoffs. It's not that hard. They didn't do it this year, but but there's a difference between making the playoffs and being a contender, right? And I just like, I don't know. Like,
I mean, I guess it is like
he's like a perennial contender, but like he hasn't been there since like
Brooklyn.
Steph brought him there.
Brooklyn.
They were okay.
That year, 2021. That year, 2021, when where Giannis won that chip. That series went to 7, and KD's foot was on the line, and that's the only reason why they didn't win that game. They win that game. That's a whole different story for Kevin Durant and the Kevin Durant saga. I just think a 37. Yes, you're not getting a lot for KD, but if you explored this trade earlier, if you explored it last year, if you explored it during the offseason where the trade deadline, if you're more realistic with where you are as a franchise, once you made that Bradley Beal trade, you've been far better. First of all, don't make that trade. But since you made that trade, you've been far better off moving him earlier if you knew this is a route that you're going to have to go anyways, because they just seem resigned to it. I think they did a lot to kind of like lower his trade value during the time from the trade deadline to now, but just giving deadlines of we want this done before the draft is over. We want KD managed the market with figuring out which teams he wanted to go to and only talking to certain teams. But I think he only does that when he felt spited at the trade deadline that you're going to trade him to Golden State behind his back almost. So I think all of these things kind of.
And that's another thing about KD is like he always seemingly is feeling spited. And it can't be KD versus the world, right?
That's true. The same thing with the Jimmy issue too. He's always being spited. Yeah.
And like KD won championships, but he only won them with Steph on perhaps the greatest team of all time.
It is true, but I still feel so with Houston making this
how
trade.
Great is he? Is my question. Like he's one of the greatest scorers of all time, but how great is he? Because he kept striking out to be like, I'm gonna do it on my own. I'm gonna do it on my terms, and they never worked out. And then he burns a team and he's sent somewhere else. And it's supposed to be great, but it never actually feels great. Like even when he got to Phoenix, it wasn't like, oh, he's happy and smiling and everything's great now. It's just like, okay, he's in Phoenix now. Just like, okay, he's in Brooklyn now. You know?
So would you call him like an amplified Carmelo Anthony?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's probably fair, right? It's
I would look at KD. I still would have KD as like a top like 20 player like all time, like to me, based off his scoring, his peaks, what he's able to do.
KD in his prime. Like if I need one person in NBA history to get me a bucket, like chips are down, I need one bucket. Like KD's probably like the best choice.
The thing with KD that is like a constant for him, no matter where he goes, even in the Brooklyn years. What's made KD always at his best is being next to an elite playmaker. He needs that. He needs that. That's something that he needs to play with in order to get the best version of himself. I think even in Phoenix, I think he crossed over 1 year with Chris Paul. I think that was their better year when Chris Paul was there with him. Did he cross over? Or did you leave? Did you get there right after?
Might have crossed over. I can't remember. Is Fred enough then? Is Van Vliet going to be enough?
I think there's enough infrastructure on Houston to make it not matter nearly as much for him to do as I don't think he needs to do nearly as much as he needed to do before. with the guys that they have now, the young guys coming up. I think they're just deeper than a lot of these teams that he's been on. They're deeper than the Suns team.
Yeah.
They're deeper than those Brooklyn teams. A lot of those teams to get KD had to gut their team to get him. This is probably the first time they didn't really have to gut much of what they wanted. They kept Jabari Smith, like they kept Sengun, they kept everything that they needed to move forward and just added KD, which is why I'm pretty optimistic with how this run's gonna go. I'm not saying it's gonna result in the championship. Because we're still looking at OKC and we're still looking at like other teams out there that are going to be gunning for it. So but it feels like one of the cleaner fits that he's gotten to be a part of recently.
I agree. Honestly, like I know we're in the weeds about like who KD is anymore and like what's his value. I think Houston getting him though was the right choice. First of all, yeah, I agree with you. It's probably his best situation since Golden State, as far as team build goes. But what it does is it cleans up everything that's kind of wrong with Houston, right? They don't have a guy to be the guy in the moment, right? They have all these great players. They've got Amin Thompson, they've got Şengün, they've got all these young guys, right? But when the team needed like, okay, we're gonna feed it through one guy for a couple possessions, it was like, we need this. They didn't really have that guy. Now they have him, and they've got like one of the best in NBA history to be that guy. So it makes a lot of sense. I think they're gonna do quite well next year. I think it was a really good trade as far as Houston goes, and I'm just saying, like, I personally feel like it's probably the best package that was offered up. And even compared to the theoretical Heat package, I still prefer the Houston.
Yeah, especially if Heat wasn't because from all sides, Miami wasn't even giving that up. They weren't even getting to that theoretical. They weren't even getting there.
Yeah.
Phoenix was asking for that. But Miami was like, no. So if they weren't even getting it, this is 100% the best package. The Minnesota package also that was rumored to have been out there was a really good package. It sounded like it was Gobert, Dillingham, Dante DiVincenzo, and whatever pick they had this year, I think, as well, which is a super solid package. But at the same time, why are you making that trade, Minnesota? Like, why are you even trying to make that trade? Your team isn't going to do anything with that.
Yeah, who's playing center for you next year?
Like, it doesn't
it's
really,
not going to be Naz Reid.
Like,
he's 6'8". Yeah.
I didn't get. I didn't understand. I understand why Phoenix really wanted that to happen, but I just didn't understand why Minnesota was entertaining that at all. I didn't think like the Raptor stuff was really real. The Cav thing that came out was interesting though, with them willing to give up Garland, which is, I think, when KD was first talked about, I think we spoke about like Garland should just be traded for KD and just call it a day. I guess that was a thought, which is nice to know.
Nice to know. Yeah.
Anything else on this KD stuff?
No. I like it. I think it was a good trade. I think it was a good trade for both parties. I think it's like as good as Phoenix was going to do.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it was the best situation for KD to go to.
Yeah, I think this is the best. Yeah, I think this is the best.
Because even if he went to the Spurs, he'd be second fiddle.
Yeah, which I think that would have been his preferred choice, is to go play with Wemby, just because you would have to, but there's so many young guys there. There's so much that they got to figure out with the hierarchy there already, that you're adding probably Harper to your team. You have Castle emerging. You just traded for Fox. Like, it's a lot going on. You have Devin Vassell that you still like. You're still trying Keldon Johnson. You got Shohan still there. So it's a lot going on in Spurs. I think they still got to really figure out before they make that type of move. Now, we're hearing murmurs of like a Jaylen Brown being on the loose. So if that is true, that is a player I could see them kind of gutting some of that stuff for if you're the Spurs. I think that's more of the timeline that they're looking for.
Yeah, that would make sense. I think I'd be okay with that. At this point, like if I'm the Spurs, I'd probably just keep going. Just let it ride. Just follow the Thunder model and let it ride.
Yeah. You might be able to just build it organically.
Yeah.
And it's nice when that happens.
Yeah. it's set up for a lot of success when that happens.
Yeah. I think that's good on KD. That's good stuff on KD. But more trades did happen. So after the KD to Houston trade, we did have Drew getting sent back to Portland. And somewhat of a little shocker of a trade. Drew Holiday gets traded, kind of expected in the sense that we knew Boston was looking to move Drew and Kristaps Porzingis. Both did get moved at different times during this time period. First being Drew. Drew goes for Anthony Simons and 2 future second round picks, which is just like, Boston gets to get under the cap. They get a young guy back that they can try out, see if he works with some of what they have already, and they get 2 seconds out of it, which is good value for Drew, who doesn't have the best of contracts in this situation, at this stage of his career.
Yeah, they save like $4 million on contracts, but $40 million on
over a couple years.
Yeah, no, just on luxury tax.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah, of course, yeah, the luxury.
So much of Boston was just like luxury tax stuff. I kind of thought like I saw that trade and I was like, really? Why would the Trailblazers do this?
I was floored by
yeah,
I'm still trying to figure that one out.
You look at Drew and you're like, well, he just had his worst season of his career. He's clearly in the aging curve. He's still got lots of time on his contract. They must be thinking that like Drew Holiday is their Fred VanVleet or Alex Caruso, who's just gonna come in and like whip these young guys into shape and be like, this is how you play championship ball, right?
Yeah, that's got to be the thinking, because you're not really paying anybody on Portland, so I guess the money doesn't matter as much to you. No. So you're trying to bring in someone to cultivate that culture. I just don't know. Like you said, this is like his worst season, so I don't know why you're giving up stuff for him, like actual.
Yeah, it felt like a real offer, right? And I kind of thought you could get him for like legit just salary dumps.
Yeah, which is where I would have had it too. They had him before, they traded him to Boston, so but it does seem like this time they're looking to keep him. So I think that plays into what you're saying. I think they're just looking for someone to be stable, a stable vet that can just kind of show the young guys like the way, the ropes, and all that type of stuff. Which does Drew even want to do that? Like I don't even know. Like when you mentioned like Fred VanVleet, that's someone who wanted to do that. Like he embellished that. Like that's something that he wanted. Mostly when that happens, when a veteran guard goes to one of these teams, it's by choice. Like Chris Paul going to OKC all those years ago, or Chris Paul going to Spurs. Like this is purpose. Like he feels a purpose in going to these teams and helping a young group out. I'm not too sure Drew, maybe he will get to that point, but I don't think he had this in his plans. I think he thought he was going to go to like maybe another team that's competing. I think he still feels like he can compete. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out through the offseason, if they end up truly keeping him or if he gets moved once again.
I kind of feel like both of those players could be moved at the deadline.
I could see Boston recouping some value from Simons and then flipping him again. Brad Stevens seems to be pretty like heartless when it comes to making these trades. Like not heartless in a bad way, but heartless in like he sees an opportunity, he's going to take it. He's not gonna lollygag too long about it. He's gonna make that move when it needs to be made. So if an offer comes for Simons like coming down the line, like around the trade deadline time, after Simons has like a good first half of the year, 100% I could see him being moved. Again, for actual assets for them to start their real retool rebuild.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I think Boston is doing kind of the thing that like as fans we kind of always want our teams to do. Like when it doesn't work and the team is aging, like don't hold on to them. Like turn them over. Like it's time to move, right? This league moves fast.
I got a lot of Heat fans that would love for them to be run how Boston's being run right now. They recognize their window. Okay, boom, let's switch it over. Let's figure it out. It sounds like they're even listening to trades on Jaylen Brown, which is like they're not ruling it out. Like if some of these other teams would be scared to do that, they'll just shut it down completely. They didn't even entertain the thought. But Boston's always a team where it's like, we'll hear you out. We'll hear what you got. Like let's talk. Like let's see where we can go with this type of thing. I think that's something that Presti did. That's the only way that you get all them picks for Paul George. It's just being completely open to anything at any moment. I don't think a lot of teams even get that opportunity because teams know that you contact X team, they're not going to be open to whatever it is. So good work on Boston from that respect. And I guess to stick with Boston, they also made another trade today. 3-team trade, which still baffles me a little bit as well. These Celtics trades, man, I don't know. I really don't know. So the Hawks receive Kristaps Porzingis and a second round pick. Nets receive Terrence Mann and Atlanta's 2025 pick, which is the 22nd pick in this year's draft. And the Celtics receive Niang and a second round pick. So Nets make out like bandits in this one and get a first out of it, which I guess the Hawks wanted to pay for. But the Hawks paid it, and it goes to the Nets, which I still don't know why. I do not know why they had to pay a first for Kristaps Porzingis, but here they did, and I guess that's good work on the Nets to just get in there.
Just get in there. I don't know. Like, they didn't take on too much salary. Maybe it means they can't like sign 2 maxes this offseason or something. Yeah, so they're like, oh, you got to give us something if we're going to take on this on. And, maybe the Hawks were just like motivated to bring in first steps. Because like maybe they watched this year and they're like, oh, 2 big lineups. And when they're different types of bigs, that's a good thing. They've got a Nneka Okongwu who's like a little undersized. I want to say he's like 6'9", but he's a tank. And he's like all athleticism. So he's a fun center who's like
a functional feels more like a
center.
Yeah, it feels more like a tweener where he's like kind of like a little too small for the center, but bigger for the power forward position. So I think bringing in Kristaps, if healthy, big question, if healthy, would be a nice fit with that. And you already have like bruisers, guys who are getting to the rim with Jalen Johnson. Zakari's getting to the rim. He's so I think the entire fit is it makes this lineup a lot bigger, which you kind of need behind Trae Young, because you're just losing that battle at point guard all the time defensively. So to have all these like big guys, Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson, Zakari, Kristaps, Onyeka, if that's your core moving forward, then I could see as a starting lineup how this can kind of make sense. I don't know if you need to give up a pick for it, but if this is the move that you want to make, if this is the move that you want to make to kind of solidify your starting lineup, then I guess you go for it, I guess.
Yeah. I guess this is what they felt they needed most, was a skilled big, to kind of bring it all together. And I guess the bonus wasn't available.
Yeah, because he was not for that price, at least.
Yeah, not for that price, not for 1 first and salary relief.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know how it's gonna work out in Atlanta, because I don't know how. Like I said, I like the basketball fit, but I can't trust Kristaps to be healthy for the year. And then what the good thing about the basketball fit though is that Onyeka is more of like that driver. He could do more of the lob stuff. He could still be that guy. Porzingis, as he's aging up, as he's getting all these injuries with his health, as these questions start to loom, he could step out more and more and still be more of just like a Brook Lopez, stretch big and just protect the rim and shoot threes, and you have Onyeka do all the dirty work, which I think can work out well if healthy.
Yeah, if healthy. Yeah, if he doesn't have some weird disease that is unknowable.
He says he's fine. And we have one last trade, I believe. Yeah, one last trade that happened today as well, which is CJ McCollum, Kelly Olynyk, and a future second round pick goes to the Washington Wizards for Jordan Poole, Saddiq Bey, and the 40th overall pick in the second round of this year's draft. Thoughts on that?
Just kind of that like New Orleans is getting younger. They lose that like adult in the room in CJ McCollum, which is kind of a shame. Obviously, like the Trailblazers just brought that guy in. I don't know. It's kind of a nothing trade to me, in that like, okay, New Orleans gets younger, they get to try some stuff. Okay.
Get some shooting next to Zion.
Yeah, and Washington gets some guys that'll, come off their books sooner than later.
Sooner. Yeah, that's all. It was pretty much a nothing trade. You still got Marcus Smart. You got Chris Middleton over there. I don't know what Washington's doing. Don't know when Washington's ever going to be good again. But they're trying things at least.
Just wait till they draft Ace Bailey. They'll be fine.
Oh yeah, they're gonna be the team. He does. I guess that is. Well, let's get into the draft because that's where we're
Okay.
headed next. Anyways, that's it for all those trades. Enough trades. The NBA draft has lots of buzz, and I think to start, yeah, we'll start with Ace. Where is Ace going? He wants to go to the Wiz, the Pels, or the Nets. So yeah, Wiz is right there where he can take all the shots that he wants. What do you think? Where do you think is the best fit for Ace? And where do you and then secondly, where do you think he is going to end up going to?
I mean, best fit is probably like Philly. There's like a clear, you've got Tyrese at the 1, you'll have McCain at the 2, you put Ace at the 3, you put Paul George at the 4, and Embiid at the 5. Like that's a good lineup. But I kept thinking about this, and I kept thinking about this because you brought it up before we got on air. Like, why would this guy be like trying to crater his draft stock? And a lot of the talk is like, oh well, if he can go to like a Brooklyn or he can go to a Washington, like he's going to be able to get shots up, right? And he's going to be able to put numbers up. And if we think about Ace Bailey just in a context of development, he's probably a guy that should have stayed in school longer. I don't think that he's quite ready in that, like, a lot of the questions around Ace Bailey were like shot decisions, just like a lot of feel for the game stuff, not so much like can he
Yeah.
make shots? Yeah, he can absolutely make shots. That's not a problem. It's just a question of, does he play basketball well? And, if he stayed in school, he would have the opportunity to grow and develop and become a better basketball player. If he goes to, Philadelphia, who has, intentions of being back in the playoffs next year, for example, he's going to have more of a role to play. That he's going to need to be an adult right away. He's going to have to understand that he has to, maximize his strengths and not make mistakes in development. Whereas, by going to like a Washington, he can spend 2 years developing still while getting paid, top 6 draft pick money, and hopefully become the best version of himself. So the more he's like making waves for like cratering his draft stock, the more I'm kind of like, actually, there might be something to this. And it's not so much about just getting paid later. It's about getting an opportunity to become the best player that he can be because he left school too early.
I can see it from that perspective 100%. My only rebuttal to that would be the teams that he chose don't have a great track record for developing young talent.
Yeah.
But at the same token, I think a lot of that has to come down to the player. And if the player is mentally willing to put in the work and has, Washington did get all those vets. We got CJ McCollum over there now. So if you have the right vets around you, if you have the right guys to kind of groom you and show you the ropes and show you what it takes to be a professional every day, and you're a young guy who is able to receive that information and apply it to your everyday habits, then that's when you can meet the best version of yourself. And if he's willing to do that, then yeah, why could he not do it on one of these teams? If his talent is so immense, then it will pan out wherever. I guess it's kind of like the reverse of what's going on with Cooper, where he's going to be on a team where he's going to kind of have to fit that role and figure out quickly what's a good shot, what's a bad shot, how am I going to impact winning right away? Because Dallas is going to just look to win. They got to look to win. Even though Kyrie's going to be out for a majority of the year, he just signed his extension today, but he's going to be out for a majority of the year, or at least half the year until January probably. So until that time, he's still going to have to figure out like how he's going to fit in with different types of players, where he's going to be able to get his, and how much he can really explore on the offensive end on that side. So I think it's kind of like a reverse of that, where Ace will get all the freedom to make all the mistakes that you can, but as long as you have someone to hone that in and to really channel which is good, which is bad, and what you can continue with, I think he could be just fine wherever he kind of goes.
Yeah, I guess the more I sit with it, the less worried I am about Ace. I don't know.
And to
maybe
a
he
lot of
slips to
reporting,
9.
Yeah, Raptors is a good development program.
Great
And
development.
a lot of the reporting is more so that they don't trust. It's not even that he's immature in a bad way. It's just like he's just young. He's just
He's
young. So
young.
as you say, it's just like another year of schooling might have just done him good for like some of these maturity stuff. But he's
Yeah.
not a bad kid. He means well. He's just a little. He's just young. He's just young and making some mistakes. At times. But yeah, I like it for Ace Bailey. I think he could still project. So with that being said, what does Sixers do with the third pick? Because it's sounding like they want to trade that pick. I don't know if they're going to be able to trade that pick, but they haven't had a firm stance on what they're going to do with that pick since Ace has kind of rejected going there.
Yeah, it's a really difficult one. I'm a big fan of VJ Edgecombe. Some people see him as like a lower ceiling guy. I love what I see from him, right? You've got this hyper athletic guy who's, big time willing cutter. He's good enough with the ball in his hand. He's good enough shooter. He continues to get better. Um, you know, in my perfect mind's eye, there's shades of Vince Carter, shades of Dwayne Wade in there, right? Just that hyper athletic two who can do so much. So I'm a big Edgecombe fan. If I'm Philly, though, like, yeah, I think best plan would be to trade out of that pick, even if you're only trading back like a couple spots, because like a Con Canoopel makes a lot more sense in Philly, right? Like, there's a guy, he's a smart player, hits shots, he can put the ball on the floor, he can drive if you need him to, but like he's going to make the right play. Like, I remember somebody talking about him earlier in the year, and they're like, this is a guy who's already made up his mind as to what he's going to do with the ball before the ball even comes to him. It may not even come to him. He just knows, should the ball come to me, this is exactly what I'm going to do. And it tends to be the right decision. So, just a really good, solid player that's going to make any team better, right? Maybe not a superstar, but he would make Philadelphia better. He would fit the role there, and it would work. But
Yeah, I think
is that too high for Con Canoopel?
Yeah,
Really?
and if that's the case, then you can probably just try to move down. I kind of like the VJ pick as well. I think if they keep it, I think they should go with that. Yeah, it might not pan out, but I think that's more of you're able to take that risk right now if you're Philly.
Yeah.
Again, Embiid's supposed to be out for a little while, so you're gonna have time to play around and see what you have with him. I think it's a fine two-way player to kind of like bet on at this stage of the game. If you can't get Ace Bailey, I think VJ's just like kind of like the next type.
Oh, you can get Ace Bailey. You could
I
just
mean,
suck
yeah,
it up and draft Ace Bailey and be
you
like,
can get Ace Bailey.
we don't care, kid. Like,
Yeah,
get in
you
the
can play
corner
tough
there
now.
and wait for a ball to come to you. Like,
Yeah. He doesn't have much say. He has, he doesn't have too much say. He doesn't have KD say. Let's just say
no.
that. Not shutting down trades like that. Yeah, I like the VJ thing for the Sixers. Nupo will be an interesting one too. I do think that could work. Trey, unfortunately, would be too much in that Tyrese Maxey space, so you can't really pair him with that. So I think that's probably one of those two guys is probably where they're gonna try to lean. And if they're leaning Canupo, then trade back. trade back.
Yeah.
Other draft buzz. We have OKC trying to get into the draft. Do you think there's something to go to? Do you think there's something to be had there with the Raptors, who are notoriously trying to trade their ninth pick this year?
Raptors and OKC. They would have to be like super high on a case on Wallace. Would they sign and trade Hartenstein to the Raptors? And then the Raptors could then trade Podol to the Lakers? I don't know. There could be something there. It's worth talking about.
If RJ's involved, I don't know if OKC would really want RJ though. So
yeah, I don't think he just fits OKC.
Yeah.
Like, I think RJ is like good. Like, he's a professional scorer. Like, he's gonna put up really good numbers wherever he goes, but it's like you have to be a team that needs like
it has to be the right team, and that's not the right team for him.
Yeah. Like, I brought it up last week. Like, I think he does make sense next to like a Cade Cunningham. Just so that just so that like Detroit would have an extra scorer when they need it. But yeah, there's a situation or two out there that RJ makes like really good sense in. And I don't hate the fit in Toronto. Like we still haven't even seen Brandon Ingram on the court with the team. So
Yeah.
like we don't know what it
Yeah.
is.
What that looks like. Yeah.
But yeah, maybe OKC trades in for Toronto's ninth. It's apparently the most available of the top 10 picks. Is Toronto.
Yeah, I'm curious as to why that is the case for Toronto because they usually do a decent job of drafting. They
Yeah.
draft generally well. Do you think they just have too many young guys right now and they're looking for more of a veteran to pull them along the way, or do you think it's just a case of they're not loving too much from this draft at this moment from that spot?
I think the Raptors more than anything are trying to create balance in their lineup. So their front court isn't much a 3-point shooters. Podol's not going to be a 3-point shooter. Scotty, I would love to see him finally get that last, element of his game, which would be a really good, consistent 3-point shot. Then he becomes the player that like Raptors fans have like said, oh, he could do this.
Mm-hmm.
But currently he doesn't have it. Currently, you want Ingram, mid-range or closer to the basket as well. And then that means that Quickly is really your only shooting threat.
Gunner, yeah.
Yeah. RJ is a cutter, a slasher. He's got a great float game, but it's very similar to the other two forwards, right? In a sense. So I think the Raptors would be looking for balance. I think they'll be really interested in a shooter. They need they would have loved a Desmond Bane trade. They would have loved that. But
I know that would have been perfect for them.
Yeah, to me, the current construction balances out with another ball handler who's also a shooter, who's like 3-point shooter. So we'll see what the Raptors do. I know there's like all this buzz, but I have a feeling like it's going to be kind of a quiet draft for the Raptors. I could see them trying to like trade back though. If it meant that like trading 9 got them 2 first-round picks, I think they'd be pretty comfortable.
Like one letter. Honestly,
like
that's where I could see
kind of thing. Yeah.
That's where I could see OKC kind of making their damage because they do got a lot of picks in this draft. So I could see them giving them a later pick this year and giving them a future.
Yeah.
To get that 9th pick. And then maybe Raptors like, oh yeah, we're okay drafting in that like 15th spot. Like we have no issue drafting there.
We'll take Nolan Traore instead of Yakachunas,
Yeah. Well, we have no problem doing that. 15th and then a future first. That might get you some. That might
get you 9. Yeah. That could easily get you 9 probably.
Yeah. Should be noise being made on this draft night with how frenzied the NBA has been in these couple hours. I should check my phone just one last time just to make sure we didn't miss any trades before we head out of here. Doesn't look like anything.
I would be really interested. Speaking of the draft, the player who's becoming there's a couple players who are kind of like changing the way that I think about them. One is Cedric Coward, who is
he's been a climber.
He's been a climber, an extreme climber, has a profile similar to Jalen Williams, which can be really exciting. Or he could be nothing, right? He could be all measured.
Williams.
Yeah, exactly. And the other one is Noah Senge. So Noah's still playing over in Germany, if I'm not mistaken. And at first I was like, okay, he's this big, tall guy who can run, and he profiles really nicely, but what is he, right? And the more that he's played all year, the more that like what he is getting defined, and he looks like he's got a shot to be a guy, to be like, I saw a recent player comp of him of Pascal Siakam, and I'm a big fan of Pascal Siakam. So
that's a good one in 2025.
Yeah. If you get that in and around 10, Phoenix could be a really good pick.
It might be their pick. That's what the Ringer has a mock there.
There you go.
Right on the money with that one. Yeah. Do you have any other? This is good. Do you have any other guys that are kind of like under the radar for you that you think might pop out?
I don't know if anybody's so much under the radar at this moment with the draft being like tomorrow.
So close. Yeah.
I'm interested to see where Andrew Nemhard's brother Ryan goes. Second round pick, but with Andrew's success, is he a late first? He was kind of in the like 40s to like early 50s, but now I've seen him climb up to closer to like the early 30s. Can he go further? Can he get into the first round? Be interesting to see. Yeah, I think it's I'll be interested to also to see where some of the smaller guards go, where a Jeremiah Fears goes, Jace Richardson,
Jace is one that I know a lot of Heat fans want. But he's projected to go like 25, man. Right? He's tiny, isn't he?
He's 6 foot.
Yeah, I don't.
And he's not like burly like Jalen Brunson's 6 foot, right?
He's just good on. I don't love that. Like the other one that's kind of been projected to the Heat has been Walter Clayton, as well.
Same kind of thing, just good
like
scorers. Yeah,
I guess they stunk on offense, so they're trying to make up for it. So
they need a point guard. The Heat need a point guard. They need like a real.
Are these point guards? These look like shooting guards to me.
Like I think they both play point because they're small, but
yeah, that's
like I don't think they need a scoring point.
No, they need a playmaking point guard.
Yeah. Yeah, they just need a floor general point guard.
Yeah, I don't know where they're gonna find that player, but
yeah,
one day. Ja,
baby, make it happen.
Anything else from this draft? Anything else that we missed? Any other? Yeah, anything else?
Let's all just remember that Achilles injuries aren't exactly what they used to be. They're not good, obviously, but like having watched Kevin Durant at an older age and like such height and everything that could have went against him come back and be the Kevin Durant post Achilles injury that we've seen gives me a lot of hope for Tatum, for Halliburton, for Dame. These are scary injuries, but I think go science, go medical advancements.
Yeah, the more we see them, the more they're able to correct it.
Yeah. So hopefully these guys come back as strong and as good as ever. That's really all I want to see. When a good player goes down, you want them to come back as a good player. When a role player goes down, if they come back as a superstar, something went wrong, but like it's great. But chances are, like if a role player goes down and you never see him again, like it sucks. But it's not the same as like if Michael Jordan ever went down with an Achilles.
Yeah, I think Achilles too. It's changed. It might change in the way that like ACLs were once like a way more like career suicide type of injury. I remember when Derrick Rose went down, he got that ACL. Everyone was like, "Oh no, that's it."
Yeah, he's done.
And now when someone gets the ACL, you're kind of like, "Oh, that's just about he'll be back next year."
Yeah,
and he'll be fine. So that advancement has been there. So I think that can happen too for the Achilles as well. These guys are younger too. We don't usually see Achilles injuries this young on players. So,
but they get playing harder earlier, right? Like
I was also looking at some stuff of like the movements. So certain movements that are being taught now are different than the movements that like my generation or older would have been taught. So I think all those things kind of play into it, and you gotta watch out for it.
Everyone take care of your bodies.
At all ages.
Yeah.
Okay. At all ages. Everyone.
Especially when you get older.
Yes. Stretch. That will do it for this episode of the NBA Hangout. You can follow us at the NBA Hangout. You can follow me at BJAY93 on Twitter. Follow Dave here every week. You can like and subscribe us on YouTube. Thank y'all. Thanks for hanging out with us. Peace.